Good day, everyone. It's my pleasure to give this lecture, Cell Membrane and Osmosis. Now let's talk about the osmosis. The definition of osmosis is the diffusion of water across a selectively permeable membrane. So that means osmosis is only for the water, it's not for the solute. So the water diffuses actually across the membrane from a region of lower solute concentration to the higher solute concentration area. Now let's do a sample experiment. So we get this U-shaped tube, and then we insert a selective permeable membrane here. And then we dump different osmolarity solution on both sides. So in these sides, we dump the high osmolarity solution. Here is the low osmolarity solution. So we can see actually, so the water actually diffuse from a lower osmolarity solution to the higher osmolarity solution. So this lower osmolarity solution actually has a lower concentration of solute. However, here the solution has a higher concentration of solute. Eventually, so this side will absorb more water, and then so the water surface level is higher than this one. Now let's talk about the osmolarity. Osmolarity means the solute concentration of a solution. So we can see the osmolarity actually is for the solute. Okay, it's for solute. It's not for the water. So the osmolarity determines the movement of water across the selectively permeable membrane. So if we have two solutions, so these two solutions are isosmotic. So that means these two solutions have the same osmolarity. So actually, so there is no net water movement between these two solutions. However, if these two solutions have different osmolarity, so the net water movement actually is from the hypoosmotic solution to the hyperosmotic solution. For example, we can do this small experiment. So in this beaker, actually we can insert the selective permeable membrane in the middle. So here we have the hyperosmotic solution. Here we have the hypoosmotic solution. So actually the water will move from this side to this side. So it's the same thing for the fish who live in the ocean or in the river, because in the ocean, so that's there are too many salt in the ocean. So that means the marine fish actually, so they drink or intake too many salt, so that's why they have to maintain the water balance in their body. Okay, so that's why their gills will expel the salt to the ocean. Meanwhile, marine fish has a specific skin tissues. So their skin tissues actually can also expel the osmotic water to expel more salt from their body. Also, so the marine fish has a specific kidney, so their kidney can expel more salt from to the urine. so their kidney can absorb water back to their body. So so the marine fish use this way to keep the water in their body. However, for the freshwater fish, since these fish actually intake too much pure water, so that's why their gills can absorb the salt from the water to their body. Also, their skin actually can absorb the osmotic water back to their body to keep more salt in their body. Finally, the freshwater fish, their kidney actually will absorb more salt to their blood and expel more water to urine. So that's why the freshwater fish actually pee a lot and pees diluted urine. Now let's do small experiments. So we use the beaker, okay, and then so we make the solution in the beaker, and then so we put a human body cell in the beaker. So if the solution in the beaker can cause the cell to gain or lose water, so this solution so the ability of this solution to cause the cell to gain or lose water actually is called tonicity. Okay, tonicity. So the tonicity we can see. So this is the definition only for the solution, only for the actual. Only for the extracellular solution, okay? So if the solution tonicity so if the osmolarity of the extracellular solution is equal to the osmolarity of the solution inside of the cell, so that means there is no net water movement across the cell membrane. So the extracellular solution is called an isotonic solution. Okay, same thing if the osmolarity of the extracellular solution is higher than the osmolarity of the solution inside of the cell. So the extracellular solution will absorb more water from the cell. So that's why the extracellular solution will be called a hypertonic solution. So if the extracellular solution has a lower osmolarity compared to the solution inside of the cell, so this solution will cause more water move across the cellular membrane into the cell. So the solution will be called a hypertonic solution. So now let's talk about this case, okay? For example, so the solution tonicity is very important for the clinic treatment. For example, if a patient needs the fluid transfusion, so we have to give the patient the isotonic solution, okay? Because the isotonic solution will not cause the so this is red blood cells, okay? Will not cause the red blood cells to gain or lose the water. However, if we make a mistake to give the patient hypotonic solution, so guess what? So the red blood cells will absorb more water from the solution that we transfused to the patient, and the red blood cells will swell. Okay, swell. Eventually, too much water in the red blood cells will rupture the red blood cells, cause huge trouble. Okay. However, if we give the patient hypertonic solution, so guess what? So this solution will absorb the water from the red blood cells. Okay, so the red blood cells will shrink. So if the red blood cells shrink, So guess what? The red blood cells cannot carry the oxygen, so the patient will have the symptoms of shortage of oxygen. So that's also a huge trouble. However, for the plant, so that's different. So the plant cells actually lack the pure water, okay, lack the hypotonic solution. That's because they can absorb more water because the osmolarity inside of the plant cells is higher than the hypotonic solution, so they can absorb more water. However, so plant cells cannot be ruptured. That's because the plant cells have a very rigid cell wall, okay, cell wall. So the cell wall can limit the swelling of plant cells. So the plant cells cannot be ruptured. However, if we put the plant cells in the isotonic solution, so there is no net water movement across the cell membrane. Actually, so the plant cells is built, okay. However, if the plant cells is put in the hypertonic solution, for example, in the very dry weather, actually the plant is in shortage of water, okay, so they will lose water, okay, they will lose water, cause the plant cells shrink. So the shrink of the plant cells actually is fatal to the plant cells because it causes the separate of the plant cells from the cell wall, so it will cause the plant dies, okay. So we have mentioned that actually for the plant cells, so the cell wall is very important. So cell wall helps the plant cells to maintain the water balance. So so that's why the plant cells actually lack the pure water, lack the hypotonic solution. So actually they need the hypotonic solution. However, they don't lack the isotonic solution. Know the hypertonic solution because they can cause the plant cells trouble, okay. Yeah, so the hypertonic solution actually cause the plant cells dies. So now let's talk about the cell membrane transportation. So the first, so there are two types of transport. Okay, the first is passive transport. So the passive transport actually means this transportation doesn't need energy. So that's why it is called passive. Okay, so the first passive transportation is the diffusion. Okay, diffusion. Diffusion actually means the molecular spread across the cell membrane without energy. Okay, that's because each molecule actually, so they move randomly, so they can bump each other. So this bumping actually is a feature of the molecule to let the molecule has kinetic energy. Okay, so this kinetic energy can make the force to push the molecular movement. Okay. For example, if we insert permeable membrane in a beaker, so inside we have the high osmolarity solution. So this side we have pure water. Okay, so this time so the membrane can allow both solute and water to across. Okay, so since there are too many solute, actually this solute bump each other. So this is this molecular kinetic energy. So this kinetic energy actually push the solute to this side, because here, so there are no solute. So eventually, both sides will have the same osmolarity. Okay. So we can see, for this diagram, actually, we have two different solute in two different sides. Okay. However, in this side, we can see there are no the purple solute. So the purple solute actually will move to this side. However, in this side, there are no the yellow solute. So that means so in this side, actually, the osmolarity for the yellow solute is very low. So the yellow solute will move to this side. So eventually, they will reach to the equilibrium. Okay. So that means diffusion actually follows the direction of the concentration gradient. Okay, that's because high concentration of the solute, so they have the high kinetic energy to push the solute to the area with low osmolarity solute. So that's why diffusion of the substance doesn't need the energy. So the second diffusion is called facilitated diffusion. So this diffusion also doesn't need the energy. However, they does need the protein to help them diffusion. Okay. So this protein actually can work as a tunnel, okay, or the corridor to help some molecule or ion to cross the membrane, or they can work as a carrier, okay, carrier for a specific molecule to cross the membrane. For the channel, so the channel protein actually, we know the aquaporin. Okay, aqua here means water, porin means hole. Okay, so that means this protein actually facilitates the diffusion of water. Okay, we also have the ion channels. So these channels can only allow the ion to move across the membrane. For example, this is aquaporin. Okay, so this is channel protein for the maybe aquaporin. So once the channel protein is opened, so they can allow the molecule move from the extracellular fluid into the cell. Okay, so this is the carrier protein. Okay, carrier protein. So they need bind to the molecule. Okay, so that's why they are specific for certain molecules. Okay, so they can also help the molecular transport from extracellular space to inside of the cell. Now let's talk about the active transport. Active means this transport need energy. Okay, need energy. So since this transport needs energy, so they can transport the molecule from low concentration area to the high concentration area. So that means this transportation actually is against the concentration gradients. Okay. So the active transport needs the energy. So the energy actually comes from the ATP. So we can see active A, ATP A. So that means active need ATP. Okay. So the good example for the active transport is the sodium-potassium bond. Okay. Here we can see we have mentioned this part. Okay, passive transport. So the diffusion facilitate the diffusion, right? Here is the active transport. So this is the ATP. So this is the sodium potassium bump. Okay. So this bump can actually bump 3 sodium. So this spheric molecule, actually this is the sodium. Okay, so this cubic molecule actually is the potassium. So actually this bump can bump 3 sodium into the cell. In the same time, bump out 2 potassium out of the cell. So actually this bump need to bind with the sodium and the potassium, and then if they have the ATP to provide energy, so they can allow the sodium across the membrane into the cell and allow the potassium across the membrane out of the cell. So this is sodium potassium bump. Thank you for your attention. Now I take your question.